Hello and welcome to another episode of Digital Signage Explored. This week we have the joy of speaking to Frank Pisano from Bluefin, someone who I met a little while ago over at DSE and has a huge, vast knowledge of anything digital signage, really. But today we're going to talk to him more about the typical pitfalls that you might come across when looking at digital signage for the first time. If you're new to digital signage, or if you're looking at these larger implementations of things like retail or corporate installations, especially when we're looking at touchscreen solutions or being able to utilize multiple facets of different screen resolutions and sizes, this is definitely going to be the session for you. We hope you enjoy it. Hi there, it's Tim here from Digital Signage Explored, and today we are joined by Frank Pisano of Bluefin CEO. Frank, thank you very much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. We've met a couple of times in person at different shows and events throughout the years. Firstly, obviously, when you were working at BrightSign, and now you're over at Bluefin. Do you want to just give a quick introduction to Bluefin, just what the major focus is and kind of where you're coming from historically?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm almost, I guess today marks my 11-month anniversary.
Congratulations.
So I still love to be considered the new guy. But Bluefin's been awesome. So far, so great, actually. We're headquartered in Atlanta. We manufacture custom digital signage solutions. That means different finishes, different form factors, and different operating systems. So obviously you and I have worked together very closely while I was at BrightSign and now again at Bluefin. So we offer BrightSign, we offer Android, Linux, and Intel solutions. So it's been great. It's nice being on the agnostic side, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have asked you for, I don't know how many thousands of pounds of hardware in the past, so I really definitely owe you one. So to repay you, I asked you to come on this show and do this. So that's
I love
really,
it. I love
it's
it.
a really unfair relationship.
You repay free product with asking for time, but I always enjoy spending time together.
That's exactly it. So we've come onto this show and we kind of sat down and talked about this beginning, saying what is it that we want to talk about, what makes a lot of sense. And I think given your kind of tenure and experience in the market and kind of my experience of just talking to customers, it'd be a really good opportunity to talk about common mistakes that come up when it comes to selecting certain things and really those people that are first looking at digital signage. And I don't want it to be a total doom and gloom show of, oh my goodness, look out for this. This is always going to bite you. But I think it's just that saying, if you've got the 2 or 3 preparation stages organized, then you're going to miss out on a lot of the pain of getting started. And that might just make things a lot easier to get started with.
I love it. You bring me on for the negatives and the pitfalls, but I've seen them all. But I learned from a lot of my mistakes, Tim, that honestly, for what I've seen out there and where I sit is just getting to know the digital signage landscape, and that key buzzword is that ecosystem, but it's absolutely true. We couldn't do what we do well without our partners, and we're very reliant on our partners. And then we want to know what's going on with Signage Lab and what the newest, latest, and greatest is, so we can make the better recommendations and become that consultative property for our customer base, whether it's integrators or if we're talking to an end user directly. And then we push them back through that managed service or that integrator to get the full solution. But for us, it's just getting that knowledge about what's going on in the marketplace, because it's constantly changing. One of the things that's really badass about our industry is it's constantly moving, it's constantly improving. I mean, now AI is the new buzzword and everyone's involved in it. So we have to, we're a manufacturer of displays and with really nice brains in them, right? So they could go deploy, but we do need to know what's going on throughout the ecosystem so we could be that subject matter expert for our customer base. And that helps them avoid those pitfalls and making those big mistakes.
I think that's a really good point. And I like the fact that, because there is a challenge in the industry, is that it is so ever changing quickly that I wouldn't ever advise anyone to say, oh, you can go it alone and go buy your devices and go buy a CMS and you can do it all homespun. There is a level for that. I think if you're looking at 2 or 3 players, you don't need to go get yourself an integrator unless you already have a good relationship. But if you're looking at anything at any kind of scale, there are specialists out there who will make this much easier for you, and they already have that, they are spending the hundreds of hours flying to different places across the world to get used to the new products that are coming out, to see where the partnerships are being developed and where there's a lot more sense in structurally building out. You shouldn't just go and pick out one hardware or one software and go, this is the one, let's go and build out the whole ecosystem based on this, because you'll be shooting in the dark pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think it's key to go to best in class and try out about a few things. But I don't make any mistake at Bluefin. What we're really good at is manufacturing custom displays, and we're a hardware provider. So
Hmm.
I want to not be everything to everyone. The ability to do custom is super nice, right? And we're giving customers exactly what they're looking for versus good enough or what exists in the catalog.
Hmm.
So we're able to do that. But man, I don't want to get involved in data and analytics or CMS or any of the or installations or managed services. We
Yeah.
have great partners in the ecosystem that can help fulfill that. We
Hmm.
want to be that partner that we stay in our lane and we do what we're really good at doing. And
Yeah.
then we also can make some other influences to folks that live in the ecosystem that we've seen that are best in class or have had success in certain areas, but it's truly up to the integrator or the end user to determine what's the best fit for them in those places.
I think what you see a lot, and I totally concur, it's a really good insight as well from a hardware perspective. And we kind of, we reflect the same thing from a software perspective. We want to be 100% focused on what we're really good at. And by doing that, we increase the quality of the product that we build. If we are, from a CMS perspective, we're a CMS that has to try and focus on working with every single device out there, we reduce the overall quality of the software because we're spending too much time just keeping up with product. And it's likewise for the hardware and CMSs. It's just the same. It's the same everywhere. So that's where understanding that early on, that whichever partnership piece you're looking at, your best bet is to find somewhere in the middle where they have selected a few and they all make sense for whatever it is. So if it's software, we've selected a few hardware partners that really make the most of what the software can do. And likewise, you've got hardware partners that go, we're open enough to allow softwares to go and build whatever they want to based on the structure that we have on some other technical jargon that I probably don't know how to explain. There's limitations on the hardware that stop you from doing certain things. And it's just finding the right, and you don't need to be responsible for doing all of that discovery for you. There are partners that already know what's out there. What's most important is understanding what you actually want to deliver in the first place. That's what you need to come to the table with.
I love it. And I love that in my new role, it's dependent on the content or the software or the CMS partner to say, hey, for this interactive experience, this is the kind of engine we'd like for you to include into your displays
Hmm.
because our software works best in this given environment on this
Right.
brain. And this is the brain we want you to include and in
Hmm.
that specific device. If it's a relatively simple content and interactive presentation or whatever it might be, we're always flexible. Probably both parties are very flexible. But if it's something super specific that you need high output or a big brain, I like to call it, into those
Yeah.
displays, you can do those too. So it
Hmm.
allows us to be nimble and flexible enough. And we have, super low order quantities. So it's not really a big deal if you have a one-off in a specific area for us to go fulfill that. And
Mm.
and I think it's important when folks are putting a digital signage project together to get all those parties together. I mean,
Right.
I was actually out at a customer site yesterday and they were asking for some recommendations. I'm like, we all operate in the same circles, right?
Hmm.
So we want to make sure that we're operating really closely with them, to understanding what they're coming out with, and that we have the right solutions to help out with that solution. And we give the right recommendations.
Hmm.
So proof of concepts don't take too long, right? We
Right.
produce something, we get it to them, it works, and they're ready to roll.
I think that's definitely a good point, proof of concept as well, because it is about proofing out what you've conceptualized works. And there was a conversation I had actually on an episode just recently with Matt Neutra, who you might know. Actually, you may have
I
spoken
know
to
him very
Matt.
well. Yes.
Yeah, so we were talking about experiential digital signage and like how to deliver that, and he came up with this really, really cool shoulder piece of content that I'll link on this as well, where basically he just outlined where you have to start with, what ideas, what conceptuals, and then you go through the proof of concept value until, hey, it's a final product and it works. One of the things that actually I was looking up, doing some research on this before, which is that 56% of internal communications teams are considering increasing their digital signage in an organization year on year, which is like, so when you're looking at doing this proof of concept, be cognizant that there is a likelihood that next year you're going to increase that, you're going to double it, you're going to increase it, you're going to keep going. There's a term for this, is land and expand. It's used all the time. Is someone starts off with 10 licenses and then next year they have 25 or 25 devices, and then in 5 years' time, suddenly they're dealing with a network of 200. So it's
Right.
almost like being prepared for that kind of scale early on will help you.
Yeah, and honestly, people are looking for the next cool thing to attract the eye, right? Get people away from cell phones and looking up at what they want to portray, what kind of communications they want to give. And it doesn't matter what vertical, right? They want folks looking at new stuff. So that's why we're moving a lot of, and we're still doing a lot of 16:9 screens, as you would imagine, as are you and most of the industry, doing
Yeah.
some cool shit too, right? Like just to attract that eye, to get people stop looking at their phones. I'm guilty of it. I'm constantly on my phone. I love that report that tells me every week how long I'm on it. And it makes me
Don't
think.
look at that. Don't look at that. No, no, no.
So, and then if you, I mean, obviously in the interactive space, get people engaging. You already talked to Matt Neutra about interactive experience. You talk to somebody who's super smart, way smarter than I am, but as far as how to make all that stuff happen. But I'm big on the industry trends, obviously. Very involved in Digital Signage Federation and the VIXA world, and seeing what the trends are doing and what kind of tailwinds we have in digital signage. It's super exciting, right? And the interactive portion of that is growing.
Yeah.
People want cool stuff. They do, and they want to be able to get something to engage, and that really helps, whether it's helping with their corporate branding or helping sell product at retail or helping engage their, airports are a lot of times they're paid by the customer experience, right? You have a lot of people getting bonuses based on how that customer experience is on their journey. So to do that, a lot of times digital signage plays a huge impact in a lot of those spots.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't necessarily think there is a bad hardware or a bad software out there. There are a few outliers where, there are some software companies in it for the wrong reason or whatever, but all in all of them bring something to the table. I think where people often go wrong is they go out and buy X product and then go, all right, retroactively, where do I need to fit this in with what I have today? I bought a load of Raspberry Pi devices. Okay, where's the CMS? Or I go and bought a Signage Live license and goes, well, I've got some PCs. It's just like all of this kind of, it can't be done in silo. It has to be done at the same time. So it's a very small industry. I think I've been in digital signage for about 7 years now. I don't know everything, but I feel like now I've pretty much seen the gamut of all of the options out there. The new one turns up and it goes on the radar pretty quickly. So we do all know each other because we have to work with each other, right?
Yeah.
There's no point in coming to the market with a new CMS and not going to talk to every single hardware vendor out there to understand where it would fit. So very quickly, everybody understands their part in the puzzle, and they're all kind of making best decisions next on how to appease the future of digital signage, whether it's AI, whether it's scalability, or whatever those next kind of buzzwords are or the big hitters. But making sure that you've got an understanding of what you want to deliver first, and then going, okay, well, I'm going to go speak to this person who has, or this reseller or whoever it might be that has a relationship, and they've got 4 or 5 hardware devices that they tend to work with, and they also know which CMSs work with it, and they can kind of lead me down that path. I put together a quick acronym here, which
that.
I'm working on it, but it's when you're starting with digital signage, you've got to look at reactions. So reason and research. So understanding why do you need it? Like one of the things I had with Jason Alt was, why do you need digital signage? And Dave Haynes actually said similar thing. It's just, before you even start, do you need digital signage? Like candidly, is a billboard actually what you're after, or a pinwheel, or whatever it might be? E for execution, how do you want to implement it? Do you need it inside, outside facing screens? Do you need interactivity and touch screen? Do you need video walls? Do you need, what is it actually doing? Who's going to be responsible for looking after it? And that's the big chunk of it. Then you've got the action. At this point, you've got enough information to go and reach out to resellers or partners and saying, okay, this is my idea. How do we do this? Then you look at your CMS, your technology, that's C and T. So you've got, right, which CMS works with which hardware, what all makes sense. I, installation, get those dates arranged. Then you can start doing your proof of concepts, configure it all, get it installed. Then you've got ongoing support, which is another really important one. Make sure that you have a good support system for whatever it is you install.
Absolutely.
I don't care how good your hardware and or software is, there'll be some kind of problem.
Absolutely.
And you will need to speak to someone. There's no CMS out there that's perfect. We're not one of them, but it's being aware of that and offering the support around it. And then S is surveying. So A/B testing, making sure that things are working as expected, getting the best out of the content, and just adding in some value to to whoever it is you're speaking to and to their journey. So I'm working on it, but I think that's where we're getting to with that.
I like it. Don't make me start spelling stuff. So I appreciate it.
No.
I didn't know where you were going with some of that acronym at first, but
I'm going to find out now I've spelled it wrong, and I was like, it's totally a nonsensical word, or even more
is
like
this an English spelling, or is it some UK trying to spell?
No, I think it's right. I've got to double. I will. Do you know, before this episode even comes out, I'm going to double check that.
In our experiences, the old adage "you get what you pay for" is definitely true in digital signage. I mean, you're looking for something where you need good support because you're new to digital signage. Support's a huge portion of that. If you're an expert and a do-it-yourselfer and you've done this before and that's not as important to you, there may be some other tools out there that you could use. But I mean, for us, one of the things that we do is we love to be able to connect the dots for our customers.
Right.
There's the one throat to choke, where a lot of times the integrator, whoever's deploying, is responsible for. But being able to make sure that your hardware partner is working with your software partner, could potentially be working with another content partner, and then having those really good, solid relationships with those managed services. So you don't get into a situation where everyone's pointing fingers if something does go wrong. Everyone's willing to work together at it.
That is probably one of the worst things. And I've experienced that just from marketing tools and where you go, this thing isn't working. They go, well, it's that person, that company's fault. And then you end up in the circle where technically it's no one's fault, and then you're stuck. There's two sides of support as well. There's like the help yourself support, as you mentioned, like how good is the documentation? Like if I'm going to go and onboard a new software tool, first thing I do is just go into the support pages to see how in-depth this is. Sometimes it's like you get 6 PDFs and you're like, what am I going to do if I get stuck here? There's just nothing to go off of. And then there's the physical, the in-person, how quick are they picking up the messages? How quickly is their support at picking up issues? And keeping you informed with that kind of stuff is all pretty critical when it comes to that growth stage.
It is. And honestly, from where we sit, if you're going to look at something super custom that's never been created before, sure, we'll do it for you. That's what we do. That's part of our value proposition, right? Whatever operating system you want on it, we'll do finished or frameless or countertop or whatever you really want it to make that solution. But keep in mind, it's about a 4 to 5 week production time for us. We are our own manufacturer, so we can get it in line. But at the end of the day, if you need something that you want an extra 1 or 2 down the road, now we can get strategic on larger rollouts and keep some inventory and have the customer keep some inventory. But if you're choosing something extremely custom, you just have to recognize that maybe a 4 to 5 week build time. If you're choosing something that is what we would consider more core or just a slight tailor to what we're looking at doing, it's quicker, right? So the customer has to determine what that looks like for them. And we do a lot of stretch screens. Sometimes we even have to cut the LCD for sure, right? And then when you're doing that, you may be adding a little bit of time. So one of the pitfalls I find too is just make sure you're giving all parties the right amount of time. I mean, that feeds into the support question too, and your proof of concepts, and making sure that everyone gets everything right before you do large deployments. But make sure that everyone's got enough time, that you are not under the gun before a basketball or hockey season start, or if we're doing something more custom, if we're doing something more core, of course we can find things that could deliver, but is that going to be exactly what you want for that experience?
Yeah. And that's actually a question I wanted to ask you, just in the way that the Bluefin works, because obviously you do a lot of custom work. And is that custom work typically something that is negotiated by like a reseller partner, or is that typically an end user coming up to you direct? Because my assumption would be more of that is customer direct for the custom content, but I really don't know.
Generally, it's either the reseller bringing that end customer to us, or us working with an end customer to see who their channel partner is that's going to help them with all the managed services or installation or any of those things. We really operate in core, tailored, and custom, right? And our core stuff is we have some light assembly that we can do here in Georgia and the States. Also have the ability to do it in Amsterdam and other spots throughout the world, where we can take, say, maybe a BrightSign board right here, swap it out for a different BrightSign board, or Intel or Android, and that's light assembly that we could do here in our manufacturing, in our assembly, or where our warehousing is. The stuff that's at board level design that generally looks a little bit more custom. So Maybe you want the SD player, SD card on the bottom, or you want the power in a certain area. So you don't have to go and deploy electricians to go and alter everything for a retrofit or even for some new installations. So board
Right.
level design generally takes a little bit longer for us to do and becomes a little bit more of a custom need. Yesterday, we had a very unusual situation where they didn't need speakers. They didn't need all this other places that were in the back of our screen, but they needed more air ventilation because of where they were integrating this into their fixture. Well,
That's interesting.
it looks a little bit
So,
more custom, but
yeah.
it's not difficult for us to do. The answer is going to be yes, but it looks like a little bit more custom because what they're asking for the power or the connectivity is different than where we would normally do it. So that's going to be more of a custom procedure for them and no big
So
deal for us.
that's an interesting one as well, because obviously talking about there, you've got ventilation. And if we're talking about, if we go to corporate communications, it's most of the time, you know what you're going to be putting on. It's going to be in a well-ventilated, dry, reasonable temperatured room, and it's sitting there doing the same thing every day. But you've got QSR, where you've got high temperatures you have to deal with. You know, you've got frying machines going on. You've got incredible heat space if you want to have screens above, cooking apparatus. You've got outdoor screens, which also have incredible temperatures that they may need to reach, or places with high levels of smog and factors and things like that, factory areas where it's all stuff that you've got to consider, whether you don't need, I wouldn't expect anyone looking at digital signage today to go, oh, shoot, right, let me write this down. Like, I need to go and check out my smog factor for my screen. Like, that's just, you don't need to go down to that level. But that's where all these resellers come in and really add their value. And those that know their salt go, oh, I see, you want to put the screen there? Have you considered this, this, and this? And that also ties in with like, oh, you've told me you want to put a screen up there. You realize that you're going to have to put one word in the biggest font you can find, because what you've done is place that screen 700 meters away from anyone that's going to be able to see it. So it's just
Absolutely.
all these factors of consideration that I've seen some good, really good resellers walk into a room and, in the nicest possible way, shoot down exactly what the end customer said they wanted and explained exactly why that was the wrong way for it to work. Things I've never considered, but they just have that integral understanding of what can and cannot be done in those spaces.
Yeah, in general, Tim, they're shooting down some ideas because they want to put their customers in more standard solutions. They want to actually have what's available on the shelf or something that they know exists in the catalog. That's the difference of what we bring to them. Like, we're actually doing some outdoor screens right now where we have to maybe tune down the sensitivity of the touch, because you may have a jacket that brushes past it and you don't want that to change maybe a station or whatever they're watching at a
Interesting.
so that it was an answer that in many cases an integrator would say, no, that doesn't exist. I'm not going to go to
Right.
that supplier and ask them to tune down touch on 40 units. But that's something that, we love. What I love about my role at Bluefin is very rarely is the answer no. Sometimes it's, we absolutely could do that, but have you thought about this? Right? Like we're putting a lot of shelf edge in right now that then displays
Yeah, I love the shelf edge product. It's great.
very cool product. But putting it at the bottom of a fixture where a shopping cart can run into it, probably not the smartest application. But generally in POCs, a lot of times the proof of concepts, they're going to equip a damn display at a grocery store with 20 screens. We love that. We love the revenue, but we're the first ones to say, hey, listen, you probably don't want to put a shelf edge at the bottom where a grocery cart can smack into it. And we could build that out with different things to make that a little bit more robust and build housing around, or maybe some protective glass. But ultimately, you start scaling yourself out, or you start getting yourself out of scalable opportunities. So while we love those opportunities to do, and we love collecting the revenue for them, a lot of times we're the consultative that says, hey, good idea, but maybe your design, you should really be looking at more stretch headers at the top of that fixture versus equipping too much and making that little fixture look like a NASCAR advertisement with too many lights that could actually ultimately distract customers.
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% right. I think there is a middle ground somewhere where some ideas are bad ideas and some ideas are difficult ideas, which are achievable, and those are the ones that actually are going to deliver the most value. And then you've got, as you say, the more out of the box, this is the more standard concept. But there's a fine line between saying, this is a fantastic product, let's go and ask for these tweaks or changes to make it even better or to really fit our environment. And then you just know sometimes you go, I mean, I don't, although I talk a lot of theory, if I put myself in a situation where I had to go and refit out a stadium of digital signage a day, I'd be like, this is a big undertaking. There's a lot of factors to think in here, and you really have to work through this kind of list of things. And kind of one thing we haven't talked about, and I've talked to death about it on every other episode, so I won't go into too much detail, but it also comes down to content. Like,
Yes,
screens
absolutely.
are great, CMS is great, but if your content's rubbish, you've got to think about that first. The question shouldn't be what displays do I want, it's sort of what do I want to display, and then
Absolutely.
working on the limitation of or the feature set around that.
Yeah, and when you determine that content and what you want it to be, obviously you want whatever hardware you choose to be future proof.
Right.
The last thing people want to do is rip and replace. That's why we use all super high quality components to go into that, because the last thing people want to do is go and rip and replace something because they've changed their content need. So you just
I can.
have enough headroom in these projects, knowing that what you're deploying right now in 2023 may not be what you deploy in 2026. You want to get more creative with what you're putting in, and I think we work with a lot of customers on that too, just to say, hey, you may want 4K content in 3 years, right? You may not want it now,
Yeah.
but that's going to determine the board we put in, right? That the
Yep.
point, and that is it field replaceable? It could be with somebody that really knows what they're doing, but you're on an outdoor enclosure, you're getting yourself into more procedures that you have to think
Yeah.
about, right? So
And there's more cost at that point as well, where
absolutely,
if you invest it in early and then you have that there for the long future, then you've got that built-in legacy that you can start using. I won't say names, but I was speaking to a customer the other day who decided that they just had it with a particular piece of hardware. It wasn't actually a digital signage piece of hardware, so completely out of the industry, but and they decided we just cannot deal with these things anymore. And they were not cheap pieces of hardware, and there's about 25 or 30 of them. And they probably decided to trash $70,000 worth of hardware and said, no, we've got to rip it out. That's not only the time and investment that was lost from actually doing the integration from the start and all of the labor and resources it took to get that ready, then to throw it out and say, we're down on those, and now we've got to go buy a replacement and start all over again. Doing that research, and actually, again, something that comes up as a common theme is doing a proof of concept with some kind of longevity. We go, right, we're going to have this thing turned on for two weeks. No one's going to touch it. We're going to use it as it should be used and just view and see what happens and put it into its element and just see if that's the right fit for us.
yeah, we actually do some bench testing here ourselves with that too. And just to say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
listen, depending on what the partners we're working with, we may not have enough resources to go and truly do some of that. So I don't mind doing and putting some of our resources to work. We have a demo room here. We have benches in the back to light something up and let it go. We generally do it with product before it leaves the warehouse. But
Mm-hmm.
in many cases, I love to just test things in our own little demo spaces here.
But that's
Just to,
interesting. So then you basically either go and do your own proof of concept or find someone that will do the proof of concept for you completely off-site so you can get that peace of mind.
I love doing them in concurrently, right? If we're going to do something for a customer and send it out to them, and I can do it also here. So if they do find something that we could try to replicate it, or it just makes us, knowledge is power, Tim. So if we can play with it ourselves and understand what they're going through at the same time, it's great. And in
Yeah.
many cases, our world is a little easier, right? It's manufacturing a quality piece of hardware with a brain in it, but where it
Mm-hmm.
gets the complexity is when you put a software application on it, or a piece of content that maybe it doesn't like, right? Right?
Yeah.
It's just like my cell
Right.
phone this morning when I was frantically trying to get out of the house to get across town to come to the office. It decided that,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't like the app that I was using, and
Mm-hmm.
it made me kind of reboot that app, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in many cases, with technology, it can be finicky at times. That's why we love to do our own internal testing.
Yeah. No, 100%. No, I appreciate that. I think honestly, Frank, that's all the questions I had. Was there anything in particular that you wanted to cover or mention, just in terms of common mistakes, things that you want to basically put the warning out in advance to say, look, do this before you start?
Well, what I love about our industry is not only is it really cool people in it, but we have a lot of opportunities to do the network and learn from others, right? So
Mm-hmm.
obviously with digital signage experience or any of the Digital Signage Federation, things that we do throughout the course of the year. I'm a real proud member of Digital Signage Federation, so we know that membership very well. So we get to, not only hang out with really cool people, but also get to learn from them. Our industry has a tremendous amount of really smart people, and your cast of characters thank you for dumbing it down for me, Tim. I appreciate that.
Oh no, this is my level. This is, I wanted to go a little bit lower because I'm starting to feel real stupid with all the people that I've had on the call.
It makes me, I hear all these people, these really super smart people on this. I was like, what the hell was Tim thinking having me? But
I know if I've started to feel a little bit I'm not in the right space here. So
you tell them I'm a lot fun. I'm a lot more fun than them, but they actually have the brain power over me. But
I'm still looking up. There's still an upwards trajectory looking here, but it's just that we can at least speak the same language and a little less technical.
You take it and dumbing it down for me, but honestly, those are the types of people that we get to interact with at these events or whatever it might be, and it's pretty cool because we do have this industry in our little niche of digital signage. You do truly have some brilliant people that are subject matter experts in certain fields, and one of the reasons I love this industry is it provides me a ton of energy to go and talk to these people and say, hey, listen, I'm maybe in over my head when I'm talking about AI, but I got people that I know that know it really well, right? And,
right. Yeah.
I utilize it every day in my life with, to make me appear smarter, for sure. But in many aspects, like we do have experts in our field that we can go to, and we can actually leverage that network with our customer base to make it a better overall solution. I love that shit.
Yeah, totally. I appreciate it. Frank, thank you very much for jumping on.
No worries,
really
brother.
love to have you on the show. Love to have you on another episode at some point. Maybe we can go into, something more positive as a spin. But I really do think this is an episode that's been insightful because it's just the things that you should know about before getting started. And follow these rules, follow what Frank said, follow what I've added on there, and everything will be perfect. There won't be any issues and everything's going to be fine.
Never an issue. I love it. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Frank.
Take care, man.
Thank you very much again for watching another episode of Digital Signage Explored, or listening, of course. Frank obviously always comes with the good stuff, and he really did add in some value. I hope for everyone on this session today, if you do want to listen along or watch along, you can always subscribe to us on the LinkedIn newsletter. The LinkedIn is under Signage Live. You can follow myself. My name is Tim Baker, and I'm on LinkedIn as well, and I'll be adding in posts and snippets from the shows as we go forward. And you can just begin to learn a little bit more. We're looking to create a community of individuals that really offer as much insight as possible for you looking at digital signage for the first time, or maybe even looking to brush up for your future installations or expansions. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to us at signagelive.com. Otherwise, we'll speak to you on the next one. Thanks very much.